All right. So we're starting Ois Gimel. The Rebbe was discussing that there's two madreges in the Sfiras HaMalchus, Chitzonius HaMalchus and Pnimius HaMalchus. Uh, Chitzonius HaMalchus, that's the external, the lower levels of the 10 Sfiras within Malchus. The Gimel Rishonis are considered the Pnimius HaMalchus. We'll see later on, but the two levels of Malchus, he touched the Pasik, correspond to Olam in general, Eretz, and then Sodeh, field. He said that the world in general is called uh, Olam, it's called. And uh, and that's the Chitzonius HaMalchus. But then you got the Sodeh, that's Gan Eden, that's where we do mitzvahs. Mitzvahs, as he touched the Pasik, that the Melech Lasoda Nevad. You have first the level Yisrael Oretz Bakoil. That the advantage of Malchus Chitzonius of Malchus is that it gets the level of Bakoil, which is the level of Yisoid, and then a higher level is Lasoda. When we talk about mitzvahs, La'avdo L'Shomra, the Gan Eden over there, you get Melech Lasoda Nevad. When the Soda is Nevad, then we get the level of Malchus. So basically, he's going to explain now the specifics about Malchus itself, and then about Chitzonius HaMalchus, which gets from the level of Yisoid, and then the higher level later on, the Maimer, after he's going to finish explaining the first level of Eretz, the level of Chitzonius HaMalchus, how he gets from Sfiras HaYisoid, and actually Sfiras HaYisoid gets from Bina, as he will explain. Then he's going to go back to explain that the higher level is Sodeh LaMelech Nevad. When the Melech comes, that gets from Keser, higher than Keser, as he's going to explain. But let's go step by step. Gimel. Ois Gimel. Ubiyur Gimul Madregas Hanal, to explain the three above mentioned steps, the three levels that we were talking about before. What are the three levels? Number one, Hamalchus Kimoishehi Mitzad Atzma. We talk Malchus on itself without getting the extra, whether it's the level of Bakoil, of Koil, getting the level of Melech, just the Malchus on its own. That's level number one. Then you have level, the next step, we're talking about the other aspect is Hamshochas Hagilui, the Bechinas Koil, the level of Yisoid. It says the level of Koil, Yisrael Eretz Bakoil, the level of Koil, level of Yisoid, when Malchus gets from the level of Koil, gets the level of Yisoid in Malchus, and then the greatest level, V'amshochas Hagilui, the B'chinas Melech Ilo, to bring down the revelation of the Supreme King, Melech Lasod Nevad, bringing down the Melech Ilo, Al Yidei Kiyum HaMitzvahs, through the observance of mitzvahs, we bring down the higher level. These are the three madreges that the Rebbe is going to explain now. Hine, hachiluk bein Yisoid u'Malchus hu. So what's the difference between Yisoid and Malchus? Malchus is the 10th Sefira, Sfiras HaMalchus, and Yisoid is the 9th Sefira. That is one above Malchus. Yisoid is the end of the 9 Sfiras that precede Malchus, and then you have Malchus, which is the 10th of the Sfiras. The difference between Yisoid and Malchus is Malchus Hishoidesh HaNivroim. Malchus is the root, the source of Nivroim. That means that Malchus has already a connection while Malchus is in Atzilus, it's a root for Nivroim. It is connected to the created being. That is the Sfiras HaMalchus. On the other hand, Shalochein and Shalochein Nikra Malchus b'Shem Dibur. That's why Malchus is called Dibur. We refer to Malchus as Dibur, like we say Malchus Peh. We say that in the Pasach Elio on Friday before Mincha. So he says Malchus Peh, Torah Shabal Peh. Why is Malchus considered to Peh? Because Dibur, speech, is for another person. And the Rebbe is going to explain both. The actual speech goes out from the person and it reaches the other person. A person's thoughts doesn't go out to the other person. The person thinks it to himself. But the person's dibur goes out to the other person. But it's not only that the words go to the other person, the whole power, why do I need the power of speech? It's so that I could communicate. The fact that it's in the source, in a place where you should be able to communicate, that means that it's in a place in your soul which is connected to others so that you could communicate. So one is when you actually speak, so you actually comes from you, but also the power. Malchus actually becomes the root, descends to the Nivroim, but even before it descends to Bia, while it's in Atzilus, it's like the power to go out. Let's look inside. The Kamoi Shahadibur, who Bishvil Hazulas, just like speech is for someone else, it's for somebody else. The Noisef Lozeh Shahadibur Shemedaber Bepoil, who Nishma Lizulosei. In addition to the fact that that which you actually speak, is heard to somebody else. Well, how come another person hears it? The Zeshu Nishma Lizulosei. How the fact that it's heard by someone else, who al yidei sheyoytze luchutz v'nase nifrad mehodom hamedaber. It's because it goes outside of the person and it separates itself from the person that is speaking. It detaches itself from the person. That's the actual speech. But besides that, hinegam koyach hadibur shebehodom atzme. Even before he speaks, but we're also talking here about the power of speech, which is within the person himself. In Yonahu, so what's the idea? Is the fact that you have the power to speak to somebody else. That's the power of speech. So, this is similar to Malchus. Even while it is in Atzilus, before it actually goes down to vitalize the created being, it's the root and the source of the Nivroim. That is just like the power of speech. Before you speak, when you speak, it actually comes out. But the power to speak means that it's connected to outside. This is also in Malchus. It is in Atzilus, the root and the source of the Nivroim. So that's Malchus. On the other hand, we have Yisoid. The Yisoid Husiyum HaAtzilus. Yisoid is the end of Atzilus. As we say, Yisoid also in the Pasach Eliyahu, Siyuma Digufa. That's the end of the body. The end of the body is the Yisoid. Bedugmas Hamidos Shebe'odom. This is similar to the emotions that are in the person. Of course, Yisoid is the Zeir Ampin, is the last of the Midas. And that's the final of the Midas. Just like the Midas by a person, the emotion. the hagam shehem shayochim lehazulas, although midos, emotions, are connected to the outside, which means you become emotional or you become impacted by something from the outside. Something got you angry or something made you happy. It's a connecting to things outside you. You're not just becoming inside you. It is an kindness to do. You need someone on the outside. So, but it is the outside that impacts the inside. It's not the outside that goes to the outside, but it's the outside that affects and touches your inside. The hagam shehem shayochim lehazulas, although emotions are connected to the outside, to someone else, somebody else triggers my emotions, an emotion of love, an emotion of hate, whatever emotion it is. But yet, what is emotions? But it's the person that becomes awakened, aroused, or excited. It's the person that's affected by the outside. So, unlike Malchus, which goes to the outside, this stays inside the person. That what is the advantage of the Malchus when Malchus gets the level of Bakoil, when it gets the level of Yesod, which is more on a higher level than Malchus, which is already for externality, and this is now getting from the level of Bakoil from the Midos. Sha'yisra in the Eretz Malchus Shoyresh HaNivroim Hu, that what is the advantage of Eretz of Malchus, which is the root of the Nivroim, Ushanimshach bo bechinas kol, is the fact that in it extends the level of kol, which is midos, which is higher than the outside, which is Yesod Siyum HaAtzilus. So the end of Atzilus. So when the end of Atzilus Yesod comes to the Malchus, which is the beginning of the Nivroim, or has a connection, Shoyresh Nivroim, that makes an addition in the Eretz, in Malchus, with the addition of Bakoil. But the Rebbe explains now, but this seems to be, why is this called now an advantage that Yesod comes to Malchus? Isn't that the usual way? All the spheres above the Zoh, they trickle down, they go down. That's Hishtalshlus, they evolve. They go from the Midos and they come to Malchus. Why are we saying that the Yisrael of Eretz, the advantage of Eretz, is when it gets Bakoil? That Malchus, when it gets Bakoil, that's the addition. But doesn't Malchus always get all the Midos? Isn't that the normal way? Why do we call this a Yisrael? There's an advantage to Malchus. Why would this be advantage to Malchus when this is the Seder? The Rebbe will explain it now. The normal Seder, when the Midos comes to Malchus, those Midos change once they get to Malchus. Yes, they're Midos, but once they come to Malchus, and we're talking about Chitzonius HaMalchus, we're talking about the Shoyresh HaNivroim, in the external part of Malchus. But once you bring down the Midos into Malchus, they become different. They're not the same Midos. They are different. Just like when you have a love in your heart to somebody else and you speak nice words to the other person, that speech is not the same powerful love that is in your heart. It doesn't come down in the words as is in your heart. So normally when the midos give to Malchus, it's not the same. When we say Yisrael Oretz Bakoilhi, the special Hamshocha from the Sfiras HaYisoid, that means as Yisoid is in its, and it stays that way, even when it comes down to the Malchus. Let's look inside. We'll see the Rebbe will explain this. We can explain, the Rebbe says, the Zeh Shahamalchus, why is this Hamshocha called the advantage? Eretz, Malchus has an advantage. Why? Bakoil, because it got this Sfiras HaYisoid. Hagam Shahamalchus mekabeles tomid mizei rampin mizomidis. Although Malchus is always receiving from Zo. Why is it Epes HaYisrei? Why do we say it's advantage? Who ki hahamshochem Zo leMalchus? Because generally, when we bring down from Zo leMalchus, he bederech kilal be'oifen. Usually, it's in a way shal yidei shahamalchus mekabeles betoicho esa oiris dizo. Through Malchus receiving in her, in Malchus, the lights of Zo. When the lights of Zo come to Malchus, normally, not in this Yisra Neres, the usual way, he mishtanis. So then it changes. The oiris, the Zo, when they come to Malchus, they're not the same oiris anymore. It's a change in those oiris. Valderech, say for example, when a person speaks words of love, the kivon shehu medaber divrei ava. Since the fact, why is he speaking words of love? Who kidei legale sa'ava luzulose. That is in order to reveal the love that it's in his heart to the other person. He's telling them that I love you, so that they know what's in your heart. You're revealing what's in your heart. But the love that extends in those words, that's a descent, it's a change, relative to the love that's in your heart itself. It's no longer that same Ava. That Ava changes when it comes down in Dibur. When the Midos come down to Malchus, that's like from the Midos coming to Dibur, those Midos change. They're no longer the same. But Vayisrein the Eretz Malchus. But when this pasuk talks about there is an advantage to the Malchus, who Bakoil is with Yisoid Zo, Shah Malchus mekabeles mechinas haYisoid. That means that Malchus receives the Yisoid Kemeshi Batzmusay, as it's in its essence, as it is in the above. It doesn't change. Siyum HaAtzilus, the end of Atzilus. The Malchus gets the end of Atzilus. It gets the level of Yisoid in a way that Malchus gets it as is. It doesn't change as it's the usual way. So the regular Midos, all the Midos, when they come down to Malchus, those Midos change. Just like the level of the words of love are not the same powerful as the love is in the heart. So here, when it's nimshach into Malchus, which is the Dibur, they lose their potency. They're not as strong. But Yisrael Oretz Bakoili, what he's telling us over here is that when you bring down the level of Yisoid in Malchus, that's as is. But the Rebbe explained already before that this whole Chiddush in Malchus is only in the Eretz, this Shoidish of the Olam, but not, that's Chitzonis Malchus, but not in Pnimis Malchus, not in Gan Eden, not in the Soda. because in the Malchus itself, that's in the Pnimius HaMalchus. Over there, it's not a Yisroin, because it always gets from the level of Yisoid as is. This is a Chiddush in Chitzonius HaMalchus, that it gets Yisoid, the Siyum of Atzilus, as is. But this is not a Yisroin in Soda, this in the Pnimius HaMalchus, only in Oris. Let's look inside. Dalet. V'hinei ze shaham shochas hagilui de b'chinas koil hu yisrim b'malchus. This that we're saying, that when we draw down the level of koil, it brings an advantage to malchus. Which part of malchus is this a yisrin to? Hu davke b'negeya l'chitzonius hamalchus. This is only as it connects to the external part of the malchus, which is the level of eretz. Yisrael eretz bakoil, the level of eretz of malchus. The kivon shechitzonius hamalchus, since the externality of malchus, which is hadibur the malchus. Within malchus, that's the chitzonius of malchus, the dibur of malchus. Inyonahu its idea is she shedish hanivroim. What that is, what the malchus chitzonius malchus is, that it's a root of nivroim. Lochein zeh shenimshach bo hagilui de bechinas koil. So therefore, this that in the chitzonius malchus extend the revelation of koil, which is siyum ha'atzilus shelemaylo mishedish nivroim. The level of koil is the end of atzilus, which is higher of the nishedish nivroim. So when you get the level of koil, a level which is higher than nivroim, you bring it into chitzonius hamalchus, to eres, hu yisrin chidush. That's a novelty to bring down the atzilus within the chitzonius hamalchus. Avol b'negeya lipnimius hamalchus. But as it is related to the inner malchus, to the level of soda, over there's no chiddush that it gets from the end of Atzilus, because that's what the Pnimis HaMalchus is, the recipient. The part where Malchus gives to the other, to Nivroim, there's a chiddush, it's an oris that he gets bakoil. But the part where Malchus is a recipient from above, that's what it does all the time. So what is Pnimius HaMalchus? Which is Gimel Rishon is the Malchus. The first three of Malchus, who she mekabelas ma yisoid, that it does receive from the yisoid. That's the idea of the Gimel Rishonis of Malchus. So what's the chiddush? It wouldn't be a chiddush bakoili. Bizehu, and this is also the reason we said before. What is the pnimius hamalchus? That's the soda. There's no chiddush that the soda. The soda is actually, the Gan Eden is called koil, which means that it has yisoid. That's what it's called. It doesn't have to receive koil, but that's the Gimel Rishonis of Malchus, is soda, is Gan Eden. V'zeu she'Gan Eden nikra b'shem koil. That's why Gan Eden is called koil. Because what? Because it has yisoid in it. Because that's what Malchus is doing. That's what this soda is. It has koil in it. K'mayim Razal. Where do we say the Gan Eden is called koil? It says Shloisha, there were three people, says the sage, blessed memory, that Shloisha, hit imam HaKadosh Baruch Hu ba'olam hazeh, me'ein olam haba. Three got in this world somewhat of the olam haba. Who are the three? Elohein, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. They all got Gan Eden. How do we see that? It says, we say, ba koil, mi koil, koil. We say it in the benching. Bakoil Mikol Koil, which is Avram, Yitzchok, Yaakov. Avram diksiv bei Bakoil. By Avram it says Hashem Berech Has Avram Bakoil. We read in this parsha. And then by Yitzchok it says in the bracha, he blessed him, he sent him Mikoil. And Yaakov diksiv bei Koil. So these are all psukim which are written by Avram. So they're all called Koil. And that's Gan Eden. They all got Gan Eden. Hitimam HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Koil. What is Koil? Why? Ki Koil hu Sfiras HaYisod Kanal. Because Koil is the Sfiras of Yisod. V'hagan Eden hu mibchinas Pnimius HaMalchus. And Gan Eden comes from Pnimius HaMalchus Shebekabelas MaYisod. And therefore they always receive from Yisod. That's why it's called Koil. And that's why Gan Eden is Koil. It's not a chiddush that there should be there Bakoilu, because that is what it is. That is what Malchus, that's what this Sada is. It has Koil in it. And the Rebbe explains now further. Not only that it has Koil, that it has Yisoi, but the Maimer, it explains that Koil gets from the Bina. Koil is 20 and 30, Chof Lamed, which represents the Nun Shari Bina. So the Rebbe said hidden within the Sfiras HaYisod, which is in the Gan Eden, is also the level of Bina. And that's normal still. And then we'll talk about the Melech Lasod Nevad. In Gan Eden, you bring down the level of Melech, which is higher than this. Let's look inside. Explains in the Maimer, the Zesha Yisoid Nikra B'Shem Koil. Why do we call it Koil? Hu al Shem Nun Shari Bina, Shenim Shochim Boy. The 50 gates of Bina are extended into Yisoid. Because Koil is Begematria Nun. Koil has the same numerical value as Nun, as 50. And that's the Nun Shari Bina. So all of a sudden here we added to the whole Sfiras HaYisoid also the level of the Nun Shari Bina. Move on. So from this understood that Yisrael ba'oretz Malchus al yidei b'chinas Koil, the advantage in the Oretz, in Malchus, and the Chitzonis HaMalchus, through the level of Koil, hu b'shnei inyonim, is two aspects. You have Yisoid and you also have the Nun Shari Bina. Shenimshach ba Yisoid shusim amidas da Atzilus. First, it gets Yisoid, which is the end of the Midas of Atzilus. But even more than that, through Yisoid, extend into Malchus the 50 gates of Bina, because the 50 gates of Bina are Koil in Yisoid, and therefore, when it comes down, Yisrael orders back Koil, you get also the Nun Shari Bina. Now, this is a whole new category. You're getting even a higher level than Midas. You're getting to Moichin. You're getting to Nun Shari Bina. So the Rebbe says, the Shnei Inyonim Elu Shayochim Zel Lo Zel. That these two inyonim, that you get the nun and you get the zo and you get the nun, it's connected. Getting them both together. The midos heim shayochim lehazulas, because midos have a connection to the others, as we said before. Nagam shahamidos heim. Even though Midas is the person himself, he has the emotions. Unlike speech, which is revealing to somebody outside. But still, Midas are in the level by the person, how a person is connected, that the outside impacts him. He gets infected. He's connected to the outside. What is the moichin? The moichin is the person's intellect There's no in the world of Moichin, it's no others aren't there. It's just the person himself. That's the level of Moichin. Moved on Hazulas, separate from the outside, from the other one. Veloche. Kishahamshocha hirak mibchinas hamidis dezo shem shayochim lezulas. When the hamshocha is only from the midas of the zo, the normal way, which are connected to lezulas, azai, this is the two inyon, azai alidei shahamalchus mekabeles betoicha es hamidos. So therefore, when Malchus receives the midas the zo, nase boshinui kenal siv gimel, there is a change. We say that once the midas come down to Malchus, they're not the same midas, the normal way. But bezeh shahamalchus mekabeles as hamidas the zo k'meshehem. But the fact we're saying that when bakoil Yisrael Oretz, that he gets the midas, or through the Sfiras HaYisoid, he gets the midas of the K'meshehem, the Zehu in Yisrael Oretz bakoili. When he gets it through the bakoil, the Yisrael, that they don't change, they don't degrade, they're the same potency the way they're in the midas. Shagam ba'oretz meir hagilui the bechinas k'moikoil k'moishu b'atzmu say that also in the Malchus, in Eretz, you have the level of koil as it is in essence, as it's in Atzilus, that itself, it doesn't degrade when it comes down to Malchus. Why is that? Is because the root of the hamshocha of bakoil comes from Moichin. Because Moichin, the kivon sha'moichin hem l'mayla meshaychus lezulas, since Moichin in essence are not have a connection to Zulas, which is inyan hadibur malchus, and malchus is which has a connection. The idea of dibur of malchus, but it's connected to the other. L'chein gam kshamshocha ba bedibur. Even when that hamshocha that comes bedibur, because it comes from Moichin, because it's the nun sharibina. The dibur does not change it, does not have the ability to change it. So the Rebbe connects the two inyonim that the Rebbe talked about. The fact that we're bringing down from the nun shari bina into Yisoid, when we bring down the Yisoid, this idea, and the idea that he said before, that when Bakoil comes down into Malchus, it stays as is. It is in Atzilus, not degrades, doesn't change. These two things are connected. And the normal way, when Zoh comes to Malchus, because Midos are be'etzen shaykh lahazulas, so therefore, when it comes down into the into Malchus, it changes. Shaykhs la Zulas. So there is a connection to Zulas that can change it. But when we say Bakoil, when you're giving from the level of Nun Sharibina, and the Nun Sharibina Be'etzim are Moichin, are higher than having a Shaykhs to someone else. So even when it comes down to Malchus, when it comes down to Dibur, it remains in the same potency. Dibur cannot cause a change in it. Okay, let's leave it over here, and we'll be some Gishmak Chassidus here.
Yeah, bye.